So we have some changes here to the platform which we need to make. I've written them down. There's 2 changes on the website and 1 change on the platform. So let's start. On the website, we need to fix the translation to the Arabic to exactly match the Figma file which was sent to me yesterday. So this is the file that was sent to me yesterday for the Arabic translation of the website. And if we take a look at the current website, this is what we have right now. We go to Arabic. It's not going to be the same because this was done using ChatGPT. What we're using for translation on this website is Next Internationalization. So this is how we use the library for the internationalization. Use this function here if you're on the server side, and then get translations. We'll check the locale that you're in right now. So for example, right here we are in the Arabic locale, so it's in Arabic. And what it does is it gets the translations from this ar.json file, and every section or every component which is going to have its own translations, it's going to have a section here in this JSON file. So what we're going to have to do is take a look at the Figma file and take all the Arabic from there and replace all the Arabic here with the Arabic in this file, but only for the home page. So for example, this is the hero section, and we want to make sure that it matches. So it says this. Let's just copy it and go to this part here, hero section, and it is this part here. So I'm just going to replace it. And while I'm replacing it, I'm actually going to run the project locally so that I can make sure everything looks good before I publish it. So now I have the project running locally here on the left, and this is the Figma file on the right, or a preview of the Figma file. So we're going to go one by one, and I'm just going to go all the way down and make sure the translation is the exact same. The next thing that we need to do is actually this part here, with the best value sticker. So this thing is just an image, and because it's just an image, it doesn't translate, or I can't translate it. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to turn it into an actual element with actual text that we can translate using our library in this file. So let's just mark this first thing as done. And now we're doing this. So if we go to the section which has this thing, it's this one right here. And this is the image right here. So instead of this image, let's comment it out. And let's make a div. And let's make the BG green, text success foreground, and actually make the BG success to match our brand colors. And text large. And let's just say for right now, T, because this is the function which actually gets the translation string based on the language we're currently navigating in, best value. And let's just call it that. And let's make it rounded E full. And I want to check if there is a class which can make it go from horizontal to this, to basically rotate it 90 degrees in Tailwind. So Tailwind rotate. And I think it's just rotate. Rotate 90. And let's add these as well, because these were the ones responsible for the positioning. And we have to go write this part in our Arabic and our English translation files. At the right part, of course, which is this section here, because this section uses this. It has to be in this part. Here's appropriate price section. You go to right here, and then you add best value. And in Arabic, it's going to be this. Oh, we don't need a comma here. Then you're going to do this same thing, but in the English part. And it's just going to say in English, best value. Then you save here, you save there, and then you save here. So let's see what it looks like. I'm probably going to need to add some padding. And let's just refresh. So this is what it looks like after, and it's not very easily readable or legible. So let's actually reduce the padding on the top and bottom of the text, so this side and this side, which is going to be PY because it's rotated. And let's add an uppercase, and let's see what it looks like. And obviously the positioning is all wrong as well. Best value. Okay, so negative top 4. Let's just make it top 2 and see what happens. Top 6. Okay. Top 8. It's going to be 10, most likely. It's close. So top 10 is 40 pixels. Let's make it top 39 pixels and see what happens. And this might be an issue when it gets translated to Arabic as well. I might have to just make it a fixed height or width or both. But let's take a look at the Arabic version. Yeah, that's what I thought would happen, because Arabic is right to left, so when you rotate it 90 degrees, it's going to rotate the other way, which is a problem. What I can do is check the locale first, and if the locale is Arabic, rotate it negative 90 degrees, and if it's English, rotate it positive 90 degrees, and that would fix it. So we can turn this into this, remove these, make it like this, and then add some logic where if the locale is Arabic, rotated negative 90, otherwise rotated positive 90 degrees. To get the locale, we can actually use this here, this use locale, which is going to be a string, which is going to be AR or EN or whatever other languages we decide to add. So you can use this and go back to where we were. Right here. And I switched these by accident. And now it's going to decide which class to add based on whether the locale is AR or something else. So let's save and take a look. And it looks like the rotate negative 90 didn't really work. Okay, so it turned out I had to use this class right here instead of rotate negative 90. So after using this class, there's a problem with the positioning as well. So the top, let's make it top Let's make the top also depend on the language. So if it's English, it's going to be 39, and if it's Arabic, it's going to be maybe, let's try 44 pixels. You could also fix this. This looks good. You could also fix this by just undoing that and then making the width something static, so it doesn't get wider depending on the text. And I actually made a mistake. It shouldn't be width like this. It should just be W. And this is what it looks like in English and in Arabic. Perfect. All right. So this part is done. Let's go on to the next. Mark this done. So the next thing that we need to do is convert the rest of the functions in the queries file into a unified response pattern. So what does this mean? What it means is this huge file, which has pretty much all of the queries, all of the interactions between the application and our Supabase database using Drizzle, I've created this response pattern so that every function which gets data from the database should return this shape. It should have a success, which is a true or false, a message, should be a string, data, which is optional, an error, which is optional, and it would be a string and an error code, but we're not really using this. The data is optional because if there is an error that occurred, it's not going to return any data. And the error is optional because there might not be an error, obviously. So I've already done most of the functions and fitted them into this type here as responses. So for example, we use this function here to, using the instructor ID, it gets all the students in the classes which are in any of the classes that that instructor is also in. So any of the students which the instructor is responsible for through any of the classes, this function will return them. And they are typed with this type here, but they are within the response because the data here, the data can be any type, this right here. So in this case, it's going to be response and the data is going to be of this type right here. And we use this to give instructors, for example, the ability to start a new chat with their students, but only with students that are in one of the same classes as the instructor. So an instructor cannot start a new chat with any students. It has to be one of the students in one of the classes which the instructor is also in. The reason I'm using this response pattern is because it's going to make the code a lot more consistent, basically, and you always know the shape of the data which you're getting back. It's all the same shape, except for the data property of the response pattern. And you can easily debug. It makes debugging a lot easier. You can also easily view if there's an error or an error message, and it just, you know, makes things a lot more consistent and a lot more clean. And and for example, here's one of the functions which I have not turned into the response pattern yet. And I can actually, I don't have to do this manually. I can just give it to ChatGPT because these functions can sometimes get really long. So this one, it's not that big. But I can just tell it, hey, ChatGPT, here's this function, and here's my response pattern, and I want you to fit this function into the response pattern, which I already have. So that's what I'm going to do. For example, this is what I'm going to tell ChatGPT. I'm going to tell it, I want you to make my server actions fit my response pattern. This is the response pattern, just copy and paste it. And I gave it an example of a function which is fitted into the response pattern. And then I told it, hey, okay, you can start with this one. And you got to make sure to give it the types that are being used by the server action as well, or the query as well. So it's using this type here, so I gave it this type here as well. So let's see what it does. We don't actually need this part, we just need this. And we can just replace this with this. And it should be pretty much the exact same function, but when we go to the places where we're using it, we're definitely going to get an error here, because this is no longer the data. So for example, we're getting the first element of the array here, but this is no longer an array. It should be .data, and then the first element of that array. But the data is optional, because if we get an error, we're not going to get any data back. So what we do is we rename this to assignment response, for example. And then if not assignment response dot data or assignment response dot error, which is the same thing, we can just return something else. We could just do something like this, where if there's an error with the data, we could just return something like this. Error retrieving assignment. And then if there is no error, we can do assignment equal assignment response dot data 0. And then this will fix all the errors. And we need to do the same thing for every place which we use this function. So we're going to have an error here as well. So we do the exact same thing. Let's just copy this return and name this assignment response. Remove this then. If assignment response dot error or dot data, we can return something that just tells the user, okay, there was an error. And let's just make it the same message. And then if there is no error, and I have to do this for the rest of all these queries which are not fitted into the response pattern, but most of them should be. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through them one by one and make sure, like this one, and I'm going to do the exact same thing.